"You'll never win, Evan," Amelia whispered across the courtroom table, her voice steady but her eyes trembling. "Pierce will make sure you lose everything, even your name." She thought she held all the cards: the new husband, the money, the lies polished into legal truth. But what she didn't know was that I had already built my revenge into the foundation of her empire. Every secret she'd buried, every number she'd hidden, I was the architect of her downfall. Viewers, have you ever loved someone so deeply that destroying them felt like destroying yourself? How do you come back from that kind of love? Let's talk about it. Subscribe, like, comment, and watch till the ending to share this interesting story to family and friends. My name is Evan Roland, 38 years old. Architect. Father, well, I thought I was. Once upon a time, I believed in neat blueprints both in buildings and in life. I used to think if you worked hard, loved honestly, and forgave easily, you could build something permanent. But I was wrong. 7 years ago, I lost everything: my wife, my daughter, and the part of myself that trusted. Now I live quietly in Seattle. My office faces the waterfront, where fog rolls in like it's hiding secrets of its own. My coworkers know me as the quiet one, efficient, dependable, and always the last to leave. No one ever asks why I flinch when my phone buzzes. I turned the screen face down and tried to breathe. She's back. 2 words that could mean only one person: Amelia. I hadn't seen her since the day she told me our daughter wasn't mine. Since she packed her bags and disappeared with the little girl who used to run into my arms shouting, "Daddy." Every time I remembered her voice, something inside me cracked a little more. That night I couldn't sleep. I poured myself a glass of bourbon and stood by the window, watching the city lights smear across the rain-specked glass. The silence was heavy, the kind that presses on your chest until it hurts. I remembered the last time I saw her, the way her eyes trembled when she said it, the tremor in her hands, the smell of rain clinging to her hair. "She's not your daughter, Evan. She belongs to my ex." Those words had drained the color from the room, from my body, from the world. And now, years later, she was back. I didn't reply to the message. I didn't need to. I knew the universe doesn't send warnings for nothing. When the past comes knocking at 2 a.m., it doesn't come for forgiveness, it comes for unfinished business. Outside, thunder rolled far over Puget Sound. My reflection stared back at me from the window, older, harder, emptier. I whispered to no one, "What do you want, Amelia?" But deep down, I already knew this wasn't about what she wanted. It was about what I'd finally do. Because no matter how much time had passed, some debts don't stay buried forever. And mine was long overdue. I woke up the next morning with my phone still on the nightstand, the screen dimmed, the message unopened. The rain had stopped, but Seattle's sky was still heavy with it, low clouds pressing down like a warning. I went through my morning ritual: coffee, black. No breakfast. Jacket on. Same route downtown. The city was already awake, full of people rushing toward lives that made sense. Mine hadn't in years. By the time I reached the office, I'd convinced myself the message meant nothing. Maybe a prank. Maybe spam. Maybe a bad dream that slipped into daylight. But when I stepped into my cubicle, there was an envelope sitting on my desk. No name. No return address. Just Evan scribbled in blue ink, handwriting I hadn't seen in years. I froze. The air around me thinned. For a moment I considered ignoring it, tossing it into the trash. But curiosity is a poison that always wins. I opened it. Inside was a single photo. Her. Amelia. Standing beside a little girl maybe 10 years old, wearing a denim jacket I recognized instantly. My hands started to shake. It was the jacket I bought for Lily on her 3rd birthday. I stared at the photo, my mind unraveling threads I'd spent years trying to tie off. The girl looked older, her face sharper, but the smile, that smile was pure Lily. My Lily. The same dimple on the left cheek, the same tilt of her head when she laughed. On the back of the photo there was a date, last week, and a scrawled line: "You deserve to know the truth." That was it. No signature. No clue. Just that. I shoved the photo into my jacket pocket and tried to work, but every click of the mouse, every hum of the printer sounded like her voice. "You deserve to know the truth." At lunch I sat in my car, the photo spread out on the dashboard. The longer I looked, the more it hurt. I wanted to believe it wasn't real, that someone was toying with me. But the details were too precise. The scar on Amelia's wrist, the blue bracelet Lily never took off. That bracelet was on the little girl's wrist in the photo. My throat went dry. 7 years of silence, and now, this. A knock on the car window startled me. It was Chris, a colleague and one of the few people who ever tried to get close. "You good man?" he asked. "Yeah," I lied. But when I glanced back at the photo, I noticed something I hadn't before. the reflection in a shop window behind them. A sign. Portland Cafe. They were close. Hours away. And that's when the cold realization hit me. Whoever sent that photo knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted me to find her. And I was starting to think. I would. Please subscribe. I left work early that day. I told Chris I wasn't feeling well, not a total lie. My stomach felt like it was tied in a knot of memories I didn't want to revisit. The photo was still in my pocket, warm from my body heat, its edges slightly bent from how tightly I'd been holding it. By late afternoon, I was driving down the interstate toward Portland. The rain had started again, faint at first, then heavier, the kind that blurs everything ahead until you're not sure if you're chasing ghosts or running from them. I kept glancing at the picture on the passenger seat. Every time my eyes met Lily's face, 1,000 moments flickered behind my eyelids, her first steps on the living room carpet, the way she'd draw crooked hearts on my architectural sketches, her voice calling, "Daddy, look what I made." She'd been my reason for everything. And Amelia? Amelia had been my undoing. The cafe was easy to find, Portland Cafe, a small brick-front place tucked between an art gallery and a florist. It looked cozy, innocent. I parked across the street, sitting there for almost 30 minutes just watching. The neon sign flickered, and people came and went, laughing, carrying coffee cups, living simple, honest lives. Then I saw her. Amelia. She was standing by the window, phone in hand, her hair longer now, streaked with chestnut brown instead of black. She wore a coat the color of rain. For a moment I couldn't breathe. She looked older, yes, but not defeated. More like someone who'd rewritten her own story and started over. I almost opened the car door. Almost. But something stopped me, a memory sharp and sudden. Flashback. 7 years ago. Lagos. The night everything ended. Rain pounding on the roof. Amelia screaming. Me holding a crumpled DNA test in my hand. "Who is he?" I asked. She wouldn't look at me. "She's not your daughter, Evan. She belongs to my ex." The way she said it, calm, almost relieved, still burned like acid in my mind. Back to present. I leaned back, my breath fogging the windshield. I didn't know why I'd come. Closure? Revenge? Curiosity? Maybe all three. But as I watched her, something else caught my attention. A man stepped out of the cafe and put his arm around her. Tall, broad-shouldered, confident. She smiled, the same smile she used to give me when she was proud of something small. Then, from behind her, a little girl appeared, holding her hand. Lily. The world went quiet. It wasn't a photograph anymore. It was real, moving, breathing, laughing. She tugged on Amelia's coat and said something I couldn't hear. Amelia knelt, kissed her forehead, and they walked off together with the man. I sat there long after they disappeared down the street. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. She had built a new life, one where I didn't exist. But someone had sent me that photo for a reason. Someone wanted me to see this. And I was going to find out who. The next morning I was still in Portland. I hadn't planned to stay, but sleep wouldn't come, only questions. The photo, the message, the sight of Amelia with another man and our daughter, or rather her daughter, replayed like a fever I couldn't shake. I parked in a lot near the cafe again, ordered a black coffee and sat where I could see everything. If the person who sent me that photo wanted me to find her, maybe they'd show up again. Maybe they were watching too. As I stirred the coffee absently, I noticed something. Across the street, a silver SUV was parked in the same spot as last night. Same car. Same angle. I couldn't see the driver clearly, but I knew enough about design to notice patterns, and patterns rarely lie. I snapped a photo of the license plate and saved it. While I waited, I opened my laptop and dug through an old folder labeled Lagos, 2018. I hadn't looked at those files in years. Inside were pictures of the house Amelia and I once shared, her school records, and an old contact, Detective James Kalu, a local officer who'd helped me once when Amelia's cousin had been involved in a financial scandal. Something about that memory suddenly felt important. Amelia had sworn she didn't know the cousin's dealings, but back then, I'd caught her transferring money quietly from our joint account, said it was for a sick aunt. I believed her. Now, staring at that photo of her smiling beside a man I didn't recognize, I started to doubt every word she'd ever said. I searched the Portland Cafe online and clicked on the location tag. It led to a few posts, customers tagging themselves there, most harmless until one caught my eye. A man's profile. Jonathan Pierce. Posted last week. Same cafe, same window, and in the background, Amelia. I clicked his name. His profile was public. Businessman. Property investments, tech projects, father. There were pictures of him at charity events with Amelia beside him. His caption. Family, where everything begins. The word family made my chest tighten. I scrolled further and found something that made the air leave my lungs. A photo from a private event dated 2 months ago. Amelia standing with Jonathan, her hand on his chest and a logo on the wall behind them. Pierce Developments. I knew that name. They'd bought out one of my firm's biggest architectural projects last year, the one where the funds suddenly vanished from the client's escrow account. Coincidence? No. I stared at the screen until the edges of my vision blurred. Amelia wasn't just back. She was tied to something bigger, something that had already brushed against my professional life without me realizing. I pocketed my phone, finished my cold coffee and stepped outside. The rain had started again, soft and deliberate, the kind that carries a warning in its rhythm. The silver SUV was still there. Only this time when I looked up, the driver rolled down the window and smiled. Please subscribe. Rain slicked the street, turning the world to a mirror. The silver SUV idled across from me, its headlights hazy through the mist. When the window rolled down, the driver leaned slightly out. A man in his 40s, calm, sharp-featured, confident. Evan Roland, he said as if confirming something. I froze. Do I know you? He smiled faintly. Not yet. But I know her. Amelia. I didn't need to ask. The way he said it, careful, deliberate, told me this was no coincidence. He gestured to the passenger seat. Get in. You're being watched. Every instinct told me to walk away. But the other part of me, the part that hadn't healed since that night in Lagos, couldn't resist. I got in. Inside, the SUV smelled like rain and cigarettes. The man drove a block away, parked behind an empty lot, and turned off the engine. My name's Caleb, he said. I used to work with Jonathan Pierce. The name hit me hard. Her new husband? He gave a dry laugh. Husband? That's generous. She's his liability now. He handed me a folder, printed emails, transaction receipts, photos. I flipped through them, my breath catching. Amelia's name appeared again and again, linked to multiple shell companies. Money transfers, false invoices, fake charities. She's laundering Pierce's dirty money through education grants, Caleb said. When she was with you, she was already learning the system. But now they're scaling it. Millions. I looked at him, half disbelieving. Why tell me this? He turned toward me, eyes hard. Because she's about to take the fall for him. And when she does, you're the loose end. My mouth went dry. What do you mean? Pierce's team is cleaning up everything. Emails, documents, anyone who could expose them. Someone tipped him that you've been snooping around. He doesn't like that. I sat there, heartbeat pounding. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number again. One new message. Stop looking, Evan. Or you'll lose more than you already have. When I looked up, Caleb was already gone. I drove back to Seattle before dawn, my mind splintered between fear and fury. The city lights bled through the fog and I thought about every time Amelia had lied. The late-night work calls, the business trips that didn't add up, the nights she'd come home smelling like someone else's cologne. At home, I poured myself a drink and opened my old hard drive, the one that held my architectural models, personal records, and buried deep, a backup of Amelia's laptop from before she left. I kept it encrypted for years, not sure why. Now I knew. Inside her old folders, I found a spreadsheet, nothing unusual at first glance. But as I scrolled, I saw hidden columns coded with initials, dollar amounts, and bank routing numbers. Every single one led back to Pierce Developments. One name stood out, C. Harris. The same alias Caleb had used on his business card. He hadn't just worked for Pierce. He'd been part of it. I sat there in the half-light, realizing I was now tangled in the same web they were trying to erase. I emailed the data to my secure account, then another copy to a cloud drive under a fake name. If anything happened to me, it would go public. Hours later, as I drifted into uneasy sleep, I heard a car outside. Headlights flashed through my blinds. Then silence. When I woke, my phone was gone. So was the hard drive. But the email had already sent. 3 days passed. I hadn't heard from Caleb or anyone else. Then one night my office phone rang. Unknown caller. A woman's voice trembling. Evan? My hand froze. Amelia? Pause. Then a whisper. You shouldn't have come to Portland. Her tone wasn't angry, it was frightened. I heard background noise, muffled talking, and the faint, innocent laughter of a child. Where are you? I asked. Someplace safe, she said quickly. But you don't understand, Pierce knows about you. He knows everything. Please just stay away. Then tell me the truth, I said, my voice shaking. Why now? Why come back? She started crying softly. Because Lily, she's sick. And he won't help. My heart stopped. What? She needs surgery. He said it's not his problem. I didn't know where else to turn. I didn't know if it was the truth or another manipulation, but the fear in her voice sounded real. Send me the hospital name, I said quietly. I'll find you. She hesitated. Evan, don't. The line went dead. I drove to St. Mary's Medical Center, Portland. I didn't know if Amelia had meant that place, but something told me she'd be there. The pediatric wing smelled of antiseptic and exhaustion. I moved quietly, my eyes scanning every face until I saw her, sitting in the waiting area, hands clasped, staring at the floor. When she looked up, her breath caught. Evan. I froze. For a moment, time rewound, her standing in our kitchen, the scent of rain in her hair, Lily drawing hearts on the fridge. Then it all shattered under the weight of what she'd done. You look the same, she said softly. Except your eyes. You look like someone who finally ran out of lies, I replied. She didn't flinch. I deserve that. We sat in silence. Then she whispered, he used me, Evan. Pierce. I thought I was helping him build something real. I didn't know what he was doing until it was too late. I stared at her, searching for the woman I once loved. And Lily? Her eyes filled. She thinks he's her father. But he doesn't care about her. You were always the only one who did. I wanted to believe her. God help me, I did. But before I could answer, a nurse approached. Mrs. Pierce, the doctor will see you now. Amelia stood, wiped her eyes and whispered, please, just wait. As she walked away, I saw him. Jonathan Pierce. In an expensive gray suit, phone to his ear, face calm, too calm. When our eyes met, he smiled faintly. And nodded. My anonymous data drop reached an investigative journalist I'd known years ago. Within hours, headlines spread, Pierce developments under investigation for fraud and laundering. I didn't expect it to blow up that fast. But it did. Amelia called me the night before his arrest. What did you do? She whispered. What you couldn't, I said. I ended it. She didn't answer right away. Then, they'll come after me too. You made your choice, Amelia. I know, she said softly. But Evan, thank you. For Lily. Her voice broke on the last word. Then she hung up. A week later, Pierce's empire collapsed. Accounts frozen, assets seized. Amelia turned herself in, struck a deal, they said, to protect her daughter. I watched it all unfold on the news, her face pale and tear-streaked as she walked into the courthouse. They called it justice. I called it balance. But that didn't make the silence any easier. The investigation ended. Amelia was sentenced to 3 years. Pierce got 15. I moved again, this time to Denver. A quieter city, fewer ghosts. I built my days around work and quiet nights, but the past has a way of echoing no matter how far you run. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a photo, Lily smiling, holding a drawing. 2 stick figures. One labeled Mom. The other labeled Dad. Except she'd drawn my face. The note beneath it said only, she still remembers you. I sat there for a long time staring at it. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. I'd spent all my tears years ago. I framed the photo and placed it on my desk. I didn't reach out. I didn't visit. Some distances are safer than forgiveness. But sometimes, when the wind moves through the open window just right, I swear I can still hear her voice, that little girl calling, Daddy, look what I made. I whisper back every time, I see it, Lily. I see it. Because even after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the revenge, that small piece of love was real. And in the quiet of my apartment, that's enough. For now. Subscribe, like, comment, and share for more interesting stories.